Welcome to the Vetiver Vibes podcast. We're your hosts, Nikki, Rachel, and Rhonda, certified clinical aromatherapists coming to you from Ontario, Canada, and on the internet everywhere.
This episode is brought to you by Essentria, a leading online school for aromatherapy. Essentria is your go-to source for clinical aromatherapy certification programs that are recognized by NAHA and the Canadian Federation of Aromatherapists.
If you want to learn more about Aroma Massage course, check out their website, www.schoolofessentria.com. We're excited that you've given your time to be here with us, knowing you'll get the best essential oil scoop. Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Vetiver Vibes. Nikki Fraser here with Hana Tisserand. Hana is an essential oil educator and co-founder of Tisserand Institute, a global resource for evidence-based essential oil education. Coming from a background in translation and adult learning, her focus is on making research understandable and making science enjoyable. Welcome to the podcast, Hana.
Hi, Nikki. Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm very excited to chat with you today all about the importance and the limitations of research that goes into essential oils, aromatherapy. This is always a huge topic for us as a school, also where it's like we have students that have to write research papers, and people are often coming to us being like, well, where's the science and where's this? And even ourselves, I'm a science-based person. I love, when I got into the oils, I was like, these are amazing. And then I'm like, whoa. But I also want to make sure I'm using them safely and like, how are they working?
Yeah.
Why? I love to know why things work. Like,
me too.
Why is an elastic stretchy? You know, I remember learning that in science class in OAC, our grade 13 at the time that we had it. And it was like, this is the coolest thing ever, knowing how things work. So
absolutely, yeah.
I love to dive deep into the research with you. But before we dive into that, we always like to ask our guests, what is your favorite oil?
That's a tough question. And it, kind of a testament to how my brain operates and how the Tisserand Institute education operates is like, it depends. The answer is almost always, it depends. Are you asking me what's my favorite oil in terms of skincare? Are you asking me what's my favorite oil in terms of what I enjoy smelling right now? Or, what's my favorite oil to diffuse around in the car? It will depend on what is happening and what I needed to do. I am definitely partial to jasmines and roses and sandalwoods for just kind of the perfume side of things, for just enjoying smell. But that also changes with seasons or with what I need to feel like. So I really don't have a clear answer. But if you're asking me what's my favorite oil in terms of research and what we know about it, right now, I would actually have to say patchouli, and not for the reasons of I really liked hippies in the 60s, which is what we associate patchouli with. But patchouli is proving to be a very powerful oil in skin, a very powerful antimicrobial, and you wouldn't think about that. So it's let's see we're watching you, patchouli. We're looking at you and seeing all the great things that you can do. But yeah, it changes. Favorite oils change for me. Definitely.
Awesome. I love it. And I always love hearing the different answers, because that's exactly it. You can go in 1,000 different ways with that question. And so it's great. And it's awesome that you bring up the patchouli aspects. I'm trying to find ways on embracing patchouli, because it's the only oil so far that I've come across that I have not overcome my dislike of it. So I'm always finding I've been really good lately at trying to incorporate it into some of the things that I make, because just a little bit I'm noticing I'm okay with lately, but so I'd love to see reasons as like, I can do this. I will embrace this eventually.
Well, it depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to create something that you enjoy the smell of and you want to give yourself a challenge and see if you can create a combination of oils that makes patchouli palatable for you, that's one thing. If you're creating something that you want to be strong antimicrobial and have a sort of a lasting effect, if you put in tea tree oil, do you like the smell of tea tree oil?
See, I don't mind the smell of tea tree oil.
You don't mind it, but it's, it's because we have sort of primed ourselves to think about tea tree oil. That's the medicinal smell, right?
Yeah.
It's not a pleasant smell. It really isn't. It's, it's tea tree oil. But okay, tea tree, we're dealing with medicinal, we're dealing with strong antimicrobial. That's the smell that goes with it, and we don't mind it. So it's, that's another way to look at it. Just, my sister, when she was a baby, had eczema. And at that point, the treatment was a white powder that smelled like tar.
Oh, wow.
So a sort of smoky tar, just really unpleasant smell. But that was the treatment, and it helped her. Yeah. So
no, that's a good spin on how to look at it. I'm going to have to do that. So I'd love to know, how did you get into aromatherapy and the research aspect of it?
So kind of like you, I have a very, very curious mind. And I've always had a very curious mind. I've been a nerd ever since I remember. And I also come from two different aspects of my upbringing. So one is the fact that my mom is a pediatrician. My grandma used to be a nurse, but the kind of nurse like lifelong taking care of people. So kind of medicine and healing and taking care of our health was always a part of our family, just, medicine cabinet. At the same time, growing up in the Czech Republic, that area of Europe has a very strong connection to herbal medicine still, which is a part of the medical establishment. So even though my grandma was a nurse in a hospital, she was the one who showed me herbs outdoors, and we would go pick yarrow for tea. We would drink lemon balm tea in the evenings that grew in the garden. So it's a kind of a combination of these two things that meant that both health and natural means to achieve health were a part of my everyday life, pretty much. And in terms of aromatherapy, I don't know why it came to the Czech Republic, but at some point in our home, we got a diffuser, your usual tea candle, little bowl. We would put essential oils in there, and they would, make the room smell nice. So that was the first iteration, and that would be, maybe 15, 20 years ago. But later, and this usually surprises people, I had a part-time job in a health food or sort of new agey alternative store. And the owner brought in doTERRA and Young Living. So my first reintroduction to essential oils was through MLM. And I was a rep for a little bit. I'm horrible at selling, so I didn't go far in the MLM structure, but it alerted me to essential oils in a new way. And in a way that was perhaps a bit extreme on one side, as in they will cure everything, but it definitely perked my interest, and I started paying attention to them a bit more. Fast forward, I think 2-3 years, because I was working also as a translator and interpreter officially, I got asked by an organizer in the Czech Republic whether I would be okay to do interpreting for a weekend seminar of Hana Tisserand. Now my husband and business partner and the other co-founder of the Tisserand Institute. And that's where the research came in, because with my curious mind, being on a seminar by somebody who backs everything with data, makes connections, looks at an argument that you're making and says, okay, well, let's look what the science is. Let's look whether this holds against what we know about the world. So 2 days, and that was focused on safety. And I didn't come out of it feeling chastised for using essential oils how I was told to use them, but I felt like I understand them much better. I understand why I should be more cautious. I understand what they are on a much deeper level. And I also understand that there is something there. And that was that was the current era of I'm pretty much immersed.
Nice. Oh, I love it. I love it. And then as they say, the rest is history.
The rest is history. Yeah. They asked
You and
me,
Robert
yeah.
met.
They used to ask me, like, why were you an aromatherapist before you met Robert? I said, well, if you are with Robert, you can't avoid essential oils. So
Probably not. No, I can't see how that would work.
So I just embraced it and very happily. Yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. Love this story. And it's amazing. The amount of aromatherapists that I know who got into it through MLMs there's a lot. It's, that's how they were introduced. And then they just want to go deeper. And it's like their gateway. And then it just kept snowballing into more and more and digging deeper and deeper, more and more research, more and more education. And it just, and then they become certified. And so it's a great way of getting into them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, wherever you get them.
However you can come to aromatherapy, we will take you and we will support you. And there's a huge community who is there to support all aromatherapists.
Yes. There's a huge community of people who like to smell things and smell great. And
absolutely. So now to dive into research aspect of it, can you share a little bit about, how does research affect aromatherapy, or the importance of research when it comes to aromatherapy?
I think the most important part, well, there would be two parts that are important for me. One part is for us to know what we're doing and for us to know that what we're doing makes sense, right? So research can either confirm that something that we've been doing was indeed the right thing to do, or it can tell us, well, actually, there's not much there, and you can think about different strategies for this particular thing, but what you've been doing doesn't make much sense. Now, in this case, I'm speaking about research in broad sense of like, okay, we're doing experiments, and it can be as much as collecting case studies with one strategy, but like, does what we're doing make sense? Does our strategy prove to be efficient? So that's one way in which research is important for any practice, so that you don't keep repeating mistakes without knowing that there were mistakes.
Right.
Okay. And the other part is, because aromatherapy and essential oils have such great therapeutic potential, if we want to be embraced as a complementary therapy for any medical intervention or for more holistic approach to health, we need to speak the language of the established medical system.
Yes.
So I can't come to a dentist and say, clove oil is going to ground you.
No.
Right. I can come to a dentist and tell him clove oil contains eugenol, and you're already using eugenol in your filling if you're doing a root canal. And there's research for that. And now I have their attention.
Absolutely.
You can be a nurse who's using aromatherapy for herself, and if you want to introduce it to your hospital, you need to have a rationale. They need to know that what you're bringing in makes sense therapeutically, makes sense financially, makes sense in terms of safety as well, because you have a lot of liability that you need to deal with. Absolutely. And that's where research comes in as well, because you can bring the receipts and say, okay, here's a list of studies that show that inhalation, very low risk intervention, is useful in reducing pain and reducing the use of painkillers. And now you have the administrator's attention. So that's the other side. So one side is that our practice keeps being relevant, keeps being efficient, and we're doing things that make sense. And the other side is we can speak to other people who may be thinking, well, this is all a bunch of maybe nice smelling gobbledygook and snake oils, and, I don't really know what's going on. So.
No, and that is really good points. And in my head as you were talking, like I love subtle aromatherapy. I use both sides of and I shouldn't say both sides, there's multiple sides to aromatherapy, but I love the science. I love the subtle, the woo aspect. But you're right, going to a hospital, going to a dentist, going to a nurse, going to a doctor, going to a chiro, going to an osteo, whoever, a naturopath, their training, I feel like the holistic practitioners are usually more open. But especially where we're at, the Western science, like that's all they care about. It's the tunnel vision. And unless there's the science to back it up, a lot of them don't even want to hear about it.
Yes.
I know for myself personally, anytime that I've mentioned to some of my past doctors that I was a holistic practitioner, they just look at me and they're like, I don't care. That's not going to work. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to use this instead. And, and things would clear up. And then they would just shake their head. And I'm like, no, there is science behind it. So, but that's what they want to see. It is what they want to hear because that's the language that they're used to and are trained in. So it's a really good point.
And we don't need to be on a mission to convert every doctor into a holistic practitioner, but just, if you just open them to, okay, I'm going to do this as well.
Yeah.
And you accept it. And you're not going to tell me I can't do that.
Right.
If they become your partner, then that really is the relationship that you should have with your general practitioner. They're your partner in health. Yeah. And that should kind of go both ways. Our GP here actually recommended lavender inhalation for Robert for sleep.
That's amazing. Oh, that's really great.
So we then told him, well, that's we're kind of beyond that. We need a different intervention here. But it was nice that he was, that he saw results with people.
Absolutely. Because many don't even think of it. They're not trained in it. They've lost the training of anything plant-based through their education. No, that's great. And so one of the big questions we often are asked is, where can people find the research? Because it's great to say, have the research, show the research, but where can we find the research?
Well, depends on, again with it depends on how comfortable you are going through that research yourself, because that's a different skill. That's a different skill to be able to read research. And the thing is that essential oils are used across so many different fields that it's not just, you need to be familiar with many different jargons, and you need to know how to get familiar with them. So an example, I was writing an article about smell training, olfactory training. The first research I read was about functional MRI scans. I jumped in at the deep end. And so you have, you have neurology, you've got neuroscience, you've got reading the scans. What does it all mean? Yeah. So if you're comfortable with that, if you feel like you're comfortable with absorbing different jargons and wading through different science papers, then going to PubMed or going to Google Scholar and searching for keywords will give you a lot of papers. Now, then you need to wade through them, look at whether they're good quality papers and whether they actually talk about essential oils. So that would be the next level. You just get the bulk of what is out there. Then first hurdle is, can I get the full paper for free? Is it an open access paper, or do I have to pay? And the prices are insane right now. You're paying about $50 per paper.
Oh my goodness.
Which is really crazy. So if you have a friend who works at the university, you can ask them if they have access to libraries, or quite often you can email the authors of the paper and they might be happy to send you their paper.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
oh,
you can.
Really good.
Doesn't maybe 50% of the times they'll get back to you with the paper, but it's definitely worth trying because they can do that.
Yeah. And I mean, further behind if they say no, then
exactly.
So it's worth a chance. Absolutely. Yeah. Great idea.
And now you have the paper, and now you have to see whether it is actually relevant. So did they actually study the essential oil? And did they actually study the essential oil from the plant you want them to be studying? So
I find that's something that I notice a lot when I'm sifting through research. It's like, they tested eucalyptus. That's awesome. Which eucalyptus did you test? Like,
yeah.
you don't have a botanical name there. Where, like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah. And sometimes they have the botanical name and they either don't give you an analysis, or they give you an analysis and you find out that the oil was very atypical, which could be because they just distilled a plant that they have in the backyard at the university on a small still in the lab, which is going to produce a different essential oil.
Yeah.
So there's many steps. So if you find that, okay, we have a botanical name, okay, we have an essential oil, okay, ideally it's a clinical study, so they tested it on humans. And then if you look at what they did, it all makes sense. You can understand what they did. Then you have something there. So and I love this process, and I know Robert loves this process. I know Dr. Joy Bowles, who works with us as a tutor, loves this process. I know Dr. Petra Rata, it's another of our tutors, loves this process, just kind of sifting through that. Then that's your best bet. Go to the studies and search through them and look at them. If you don't want to do that, go to resources that have already done that for you. Okay. So if you have a book, I think behind me right there is Jennifer Peace Ryan's Essential Oils book. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of citations there that she's gone through for you. So you can do that. You can open a book that has citations in it that somebody has already waded through, and you can read the research there, or you can just read the book. We have, and I hope it's okay to mention it, that the Tisserand Institute has launched a database of essential oil profiles called Vetiver Aromatica. People say, well, you only have, we now have 21, but we're going to slowly add more essential oils.
That looked like a big labor of love, because when you just said there's only 20, well, now 21. So I remember when it came out, I was like, oh, but I'm like, that takes a long time to put those together.
Yeah. And what happened with each of the profiles, we did exactly what you'd be doing if you wanted to know everything that we know about an essential oil. So look at all the research that's available, sift through it to see what is actually relevant, and then take those relevant papers and make some conclusions from them, but also give you all the papers so you can look through them yourself. So if you want to just know which oil has the most research for sleep, you can do that. If you want to look at this particular study for clary sage and lavender inhaled, increasing sleep quality, you have the link there to be able to obtain the study. We can't share the studies, full studies. We don't have the permission to do that, but you can get to that as well. So
that's amazing.
It took a long time to put together. And I'm very proud of that tool, but that's a great place to go for research, if I may share my biased view.
Absolutely. And you will be adding to that every year.
Absolutely.
That's your plan and goal is
absolutely.
To, it's 21 right now, today, at the time of this recording. Next year there'll be more.
Yeah, the plan and the pace is about one profile every 2 months, because there's a lot to go through, and we're all doing other things as well. So, and it takes a while to go through, but we have the formula for, how to go through this. But yeah, that's the plan is about six profiles every year. Nice. It also depends on what oils do we have research for. Yeah. So that's what we're targeting. We have lavender and tea tree oil there, which were the mammoths. Tea tree oil had I don't know, 700 papers to go through.
I was going to say, those two oils are the most popular, I feel, where they're just riddled with all kinds of research. But it's that sifting through that you spoke about. That's important to know the relevant research versus the non-ones. Like you want to make sure that it's the right ones that you're using. Yeah.
And sometimes it's frustrating because you find a good study and then like, no.
Absolutely.
We are trying to spread the word about the safe use of aromatherapy to as many people as possible.
It only takes 5 seconds to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcast or wherever you're listening to us, and it helps us become more visible. We appreciate your support. Now, just to go back, when you were mentioning books, because books are, and I've got a lot of resource books myself, and I love looking at them. And it is, they quote different researches. Now, what is your thought though? Because we have a lot of students who listen to our podcast, and when they're writing research papers, they'll go to books and they'll see a study, but then they reference the book. They don't reference the actual study itself afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend when people are doing that to still go to the actual study and just to look at it a little bit and give because you also want to give proper citation and proper credit where credit is due, I feel. But I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
I think it will again depend on whether you're quoting the book because the author of the book made a new conclusion from the studies, or whether you're quoting the book because they mentioned the study in there.
I think it's typically more the latter one.
And if it's okay, we were talking about Jennifer Tisserand's book. So Jennifer Tisserand says that in a study from 2016, 50 healthy volunteers, then it might make more sense to quote the study.
Yeah.
Because the claim comes from the study.
Yeah.
If it's something like we saw 50 studies that mentioned this effect, so therefore we feel that we can recommend safely that inhaling eucalyptus oil can alleviate breathing difficulties, then the book is making a conclusion from those studies, and it would make more sense to quote the book. You can also go, okay, this citation here via the book.
Yeah.
So you can cite the studies via the book, for example. But we have actually been doing this recently with our lectures, where Dr. Joe was finding relevant research through the book, but then was quoting the research as well. And then you can say, okay, I found these via that book. So that both the author of the book who did the searching for the papers gets credit, and the papers get credit. So that would be my solution for that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that way. Because I'm always one of, I want to make sure credit is given to where credit's due, because there's a lot of work that goes behind the research and the books. But I always feel like, okay, you can't just quote the book. You need to bring it back to the people who did the research itself too, with their hours upon hours of doing the research.
Yeah. And I think there are like two parts to citation. So one is give credit where credit is due. Absolutely. And the other part of quoting is traceability of a claim, which really helps when we're dealing with myths and misconceptions. So like stating that cypress oil is astringent. Okay. Do we have the data to back it up? And where does the claim come from? Why are people saying this? Very often someone will come to you and say, well, I hear that such and such oil does such and such. So grapefruit oil is, I don't know, anti-fungal. And they say, well, I've heard that. Okay, where did you hear that? Who is saying that? And what are they basing that on? And that's why citations are important, because then you can go through the chain of custody of that claim. Yeah. And you can say, okay, yes, this makes sense. Or you can say, actually, no, this study quotes itself and it goes nowhere and there's no basis for this claim. Therefore, we can stop doing that. And it goes back to what I said in the beginning, which is research helps us fine-tune our practice so that what we're doing makes sense. And that's why citing and quoting the resources makes sense and is important.
Absolutely. No, and a lot of times I find people will also quote from the herbs themselves versus the essential oils, which, yes, it comes from the same plant, but there's also a difference between the herbs and the essential oil. And the research can show that too. And that's where I find a lot of times people are quoting with herbalism in mind versus aromatherapy in mind.
Yeah, herbs versus essential oils. Yes, and it's because we're extracting them differently, and we're extracting different parts of the plant. And so the active principles that we're using, I think that's a herbalist term. The active principles of the plant are different. There will be overlaps. If you make yourself a peppermint tea, you can smell menthol, you can smell the volatiles of peppermint, but you also get some other components in there, and it's a different animal. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I love that. Now, when people are looking at the research and everything too, do you have any tips? I know you talked a little bit about earlier on about, you can get the point of views from neurologists and looking at the MRIs and all these things. But if someone does want to go through all the big scientific jargon of it all, do you have any tips and tricks to help decipher some of the information, what people should look for more so?
I think that taking a deep breath is a good strategy. And sometimes you'll find research studies that are very well written. You can understand everything that they did. Their methodology of what they did reads like a recipe in a good cookbook. And so you get that, and that's where you can start, and that's where you will not feeling discouraged, because you say, okay, well, they had 3 groups. One group was sniffing this oil, the other group was sniffing this oil 3 times a day for 10 minutes, and this is what they did. Sometimes it is that easy, and it feels really good. Sometimes it will be more complicated, and it's absolutely okay to say, okay, this paper is way above what I'm comfortable with reading. And the 2 things that you can do is you can either ask the authors to help you understand. Again, they might be happy to, they might point you somewhere, they may not. Or you can dig deeper into that particular field. So we live in a time where we have all the information literally at our fingertips.
Yep.
So you can go down a rabbit hole of learning about the research, learning about that particular field. Very often when people are measuring sort of subjective things in research, such as quality of life, in indices, they will have different acronyms for them, and they will say, "Oh, we just measured this score." There's a puke score, for example, for nausea, which I love. The acronyms tend to be quite funny, so you might need to look for, okay, what did they actually measure? What does that questionnaire look like? Or they will, talk about something that's particular to that field of research. So you will need to dig deep and look at the underlying studies to get a fuller picture. One of the more challenging things is understanding statistics and calculations there. I would say that for our needs, if they tell you that it was statistically significant, then that's good. You don't need to get deeper in there, because I know that one is a big mental hurdle for many people. But just, looking for those words, statistically significant or now clinically significant, is another thing they use.
Good words to hone in on when reading.
Was it significant? Was it significant? But you can always learn more, and you can always go on an adventure of understanding that particular field that you've just discovered. And you can, from a 5 pages paper, you can now have a month-long project understanding how TRP channels in our body work. If that's what you want to do, if you have a brain like yours or mine, and you just, this is fascinating, this is incredible, you
can go down a lot of rabbit holes doing that, which can be good or bad depending on how you want to look at it.
Is it worth do you want to do that, and do you need to do that, are always good questions to ask yourself.
I know a lot of times I ask myself, do I need to do this? No. Do I want to? Yes. Do I have the time? Not necessarily, but I'm going to try.
Yeah, exactly. But it's absolutely okay to say, okay, this study is way too complicated for me to understand right now. I can look at the conclusions, or I can look to somebody who may know more than me if they will be willing to give me their time and guidance. Don't always expect people to be happy to do that for free, because it's a job, as you have just discovered by looking at the paper and thinking, I can't do that. So maybe be prepared to have a consultation with somebody if you want to understand that particular paper, or you can just say, okay, I have other resources to go on, and I'm absolutely fine with referring to those resources.
Yeah.
But please do not quote a paper if you're not sure that paper is saying what you want it to be saying or what you think it's saying.
Yes, that's very good tip. Very good tip. I find one thing that I like to do also is start with the intro and conclusion, so that I get a good grasp. I'm like, if I can understand the intro and conclusion pretty good, then I know I'm going to enjoy reading the middle part of it.
Yeah.
But if the intro and conclusion are way over my head, sometimes I'm like, okay, nope, I think this is just gonna, I think it might be saying one thing, but let's just look and see if there's other research that I can go to first.
Yeah, that's a really good strategy. I really like that. Yeah, sometimes you're reading the conclusion, like, what just happened here?
Yeah. But sometimes I'll skip to the conclusion. I'm like, okay, I'm not fully understanding this, but it'll show I can understand. I'm like, yes, there was a huge significant improvement on this group of people who used grapefruit essential oil, we'll say, on whatever. But I'm like, okay, but it can be hard to decipher the middle. But just slow and steady, I find, is sometimes how to do it.
Yeah.
So, and don't read them when you're tired. Don't read them when you're tired. I've noticed that, like myself, I'm like, okay, no, I'm tapped out. My brain capacity is at a max. Reading this right now is not going to help. Come at it with fresh eyes.
Unless you want to go to sleep. Yes.
Then yes, maybe.
I have fallen asleep trying to read research. Yes. But yeah, fresh, especially the more challenging the study, the fresher you should be. And I don't know about you, but I'm a big highlighter person. So I have a highlighter and a pencil or a pen, and that's the difference between me and Robert. You can always tell when a research paper got a Hana treatment, because I have different levels of highlighting. So I would have things framed. So, okay, this is just interesting. I'll have question marks with, okay, I need more clarification on that. I'll have like super highlighter exclamation points. And this is a really important point, because sometimes it's not just about the conclusion. Sometimes it's also about the discussion that they're having.
Absolutely.
Like the last paper that I dove in was about olfactory training, and we have lots of research coming on that due to COVID and people losing their sense of smell, and suddenly research is paying attention to anosmia, which yay, wonderful.
We did a blog on that because it wasn't due to that, but I was just sick with a random cold and I lost my sense of smell. And I did a little 4 pots of essential oil smell therapy. So I wrote a little blog about it. So it's great that the research is finally there to coming out to back it.
It was there before, but it wasn't, just not too many people were paying attention to it. Just like not many people are paying attention to their sense of smell, generally speaking. Although it's an important sense, and that's a whole different rabbit hole that we can go down. But I was looking at this research paper where they did 2 different sorting of interventions. So people were either choosing the essential oils themselves, or they were prescribed essential oils by a doctor. And then within those 2 groups, they were either just sniffing the essential oils, or they were sniffing and they were shown pictures of the plants that they were sniffing. So they were trying to see whether, if you have 2 different stimulus stimuli going at the same time, if it's going to improve the outcomes, and what happens if you have something that you selected yourself, whether versus a doctor prescribed that to you. There weren't too many conclusions from the study itself. The group didn't have many differences between themselves, but there was a very interesting discussion about why that may be and about the other things that were happening. And like, okay, people who were prescribed the essentials from a doctor were more likely to go through the whole protocol.
Yeah.
Because it was, the doctor told me to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm
outside source saying it versus internal.
And so sometimes it's the discussion around things that is also interesting to read.
Now that made me think I find a lot of times at the end, no matter what the outcome is, or I shouldn't say that, even when the outcome is, I'll say a positive outcome for aromatherapy, where, the research was showing, yes, the aromatherapy, the essential oil did what we were hoping it would, and it proves that it is, doing what we're hoping. But then there's always that line at the end. However, more research is needed, and this can't be this isn't conclusive, and there's always more research needed. What are your thoughts on, and I know they always have to have a liability type thing, or I don't know, what are your thoughts behind that line that is often found at the end of research, I find?
I think it's the most crucial part of science, that little line, that little caveat.
Okay.
Because it opens us to curiosity, and it opens us to more knowledge and to changing what we know.
Okay.
Because there's so much that we don't know still. That if we say this is definite, this is true, when rain falls from the sky, it falls downwards. That's, always like that. That closes any other path forward. And I know that we don't like to think about progress as being negating something that we said before. You don't want to backtrack something that you thought was true. Our brains are not wired that way. Our brains don't like to do that. If you form a belief, then changing that belief is very, very, very hard. And there are evolutionary reasons for that.
Yep.
So we don't like to think about that, but it is the way forward. If we open the door, if we keep the door open to more knowledge. Yep. And it's also true that we can't definitely say that for 100% of people, this thing will have this effect. Right. That's not how bodies work. That's not how nature works. The goal of science is to know more about the things that we didn't know about before. But if science said, okay, this is it, now we know everything, then it's no longer science. It's more of a belief system.
Yep. I love that answer.
So that's my thought on that sentence. I do remember when I was at university and we were writing small papers on things, and we were doing sort of tiny research. Every time they told us, but you have to say that, your sample was limited, therefore you can't make conclusions, broad conclusions on that. It was super frustrating, because here I am, 20-something-year-old. I just spent a lot of work in writing this paper and making sure that it's as good as, and then I invalidate it immediately by saying, I wrote these 10 pages on analyzing headlines, but I basically say, but it doesn't have any value. How's that fair to the amount of work I put in there? But you get to learn that it's, it is partially a liability thing, but partially that's how science works. You always leave the door open for more knowledge.
Yeah. And I mean, it is, when you look at 50 years ago, 100 years ago, the research that has come, going into health field of, I always find the most popular one where it's smoking is good for you. Well, we all now know smoking's not. Or
egg yolks. Eggs are my favorite. Eggs are my favorite because eat all the eggs. Well, actually, don't eat any eggs because cholesterol. Actually, eat all the eggs.
It is. You see papers every few months where it's one to the other, to the other. And like you said, too, everybody is unique and different. We all react to things differently. because we're all different. So one essential oil isn't going to be a blanket for everyone to work the same way, which is why it's amazing that we have, so many options of when one doesn't work for someone how we were hoping, we have another option that we can go to that also has similar benefits. And, let's try that one. And that one might be a better fit for that person. So it is. No, absolutely. I love that. And so before we end this, I would love to know, do you have any other tips or recommendations or final words for our listeners?
That's a big question. I would say, piggybacking on what we were just talking about, stay curious and don't be afraid to say, I know better now, or I learned something new and I'm going to correct my ways. I think that's the most important thing in anything we do, but especially in aromatherapy and essential oils, because the amount of research that we're seeing and the amount of knowledge that we're having is increasing exponentially. Mm-hmm. So, of course, what we knew about essential oils 20 years ago is not what we know about them now. So feel free to explore, feel free to change how you view essential oils. It's not a bad thing. It's what science does all the time. It's what all scientists do all the time. Good scientists and good researchers are happy to be proven wrong, actually.
Yes, I love that. And so if anyone wanted to reach out to you or to Tisserand Institute or to learn more about the research membership database that you guys have, what is the best place for people to find you?
You can either go to our website, which is tisserandinstitute.org, so tisserandinstitute.org, where you can find our courses, where you can find our database, where you can find a lot of blog posts where we also did the thing where we went through research papers and then looked at what we can probably deduce from them. And if you're looking for a fun scroll in the evening, then we have a very active and fun Instagram account. So if you search for Tisserand Institute on Instagram, there's a lot of research there as well.
Amazing. And we'll have all of that in the show notes too, linked for the database, to website, Instagram, socials, all of that. So it's easy to find you and to find that research that people are looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. I'm Nikki Fraser here with Hana. Thank you for tuning in to Vetiver Vibes, the Essential Oil Scoop. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
This episode was brought to you by Essentria, a leading online aromatherapy school. You can join the free Introduction to Essential Oil course at www.schoolofessentria.com.
If you love this episode or you got a lot of value out of it, please make sure you share it with someone in your community who you think will enjoy it too. If you haven't already subscribed or reviewed the show yet, please go over to your preferred streaming platform and hit subscribe, then leave a review. This is the best way to help support us, and we appreciate it. Email us with a screenshot of your review, and you will be entered into our monthly draw for a free mini course.
This podcast is for information purposes only. We are certified clinical aromatherapists and holistic health professionals. If you have a medication concern, please refer to your health team. Everyone's health is unique to themselves, so the topics and suggestions stated may or may not apply to you directly.